This episode has been brought to you by justinform.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to justinform.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
It was reported by PBS and confirmed that there were immigrant children who were deported under the Obama administration, not the Trump administration, but the Obama administration. Because people have been confusing this. There were immigrants who were deported under the Obama administration that ended up in the hands of human traffickers. And this is according to top officials at the Department of Health and Human Services. They say it could be anywhere. It is like it's random. It could be 1,500. It could be more. But they have confirmed that in 2014, during a drug bust, or excuse me, during a raid, at least 10 trafficking victims, including 8 minors, were discovered during that raid by the federal and local law enforcement in Ohio. Now, it's so upsetting. Well, these are unaccompanied minors. So these are people with nowhere else to go. These are kids who fell through the cracks of the system, much like the orphans who were born right here in the United States. It's scary because people pretend like this is something new. Remember, there are people like myself and other independent journalists who's like, why are they not covering human trafficking more often? Because anytime that there's something that is, remember, they like to declare what the American people should be focused on, right? Whenever it was Gaddafi, they screamed Gaddafi's just the biggest mass murderer of all time. Fidel Castro, same thing. When it was Saddam, I mean, when it was Ebola, remember Ebola, the Ebola crisis, the bird flu, Halloween. Remember the Halloween thing? I remember a lot. I was like in elementary school when Halloween became like the scariest thing. You have to have your kids in before dark now. But human trafficking has increased exponentially over the course of now 3 administrations. And although Trump did write an executive order to address human trafficking across the world, which actually is the greatest step that we've seen, unfortunately, by any world leader, actually, at this point in time that I know about, Trump actually did take the greatest step that we have seen in that department. But the fact that it took this long for us to even see really a story in the mainstream about child trafficking is absolutely disgusting. It's unacceptable. They fill our news feeds with BS, unproven, unsubstantiated stories, narratives, and really fake stories even. Literally fake stories. Literally fake. I mean, hell, in the conversation we were having earlier about Hillary Clinton being potentially being a CEO of Facebook. Or excuse me, that wasn't a Hillary Clinton story. I lied. That was the Roseanne story. So in the Roseanne story, where she said that George Soros was a Nazi, which is loosely, if not more than loosely, true, CNN used Snopes as the proof that Roseanne was being dishonest and had lied about that. They used Snopes. Even though George Soros himself said, yeah, I worked for Nazis to seize Jewish property, and I did not feel any guilt in my heart about it. So they literally will post anything. They'll write about anything and convince us that anything is important except for what really is. I have several little sisters, a lot of female friends, And I will have a daughter one day. The fact that this doesn't bother people, and you know what? I won't even say it doesn't bother people. The idea of human trafficking actually scares the living hell out of people to such a degree that they would rather engage in cognitive dissonance instead of addressing the issue head on and finding solutions to it. Once again, how can we truly be surprised at what happened with these 1,500 children when Allison Mack, who you all know as the co-star or former star from Smallville, which was that Superman, reboot essentially, where it showed how Clark Kent became Superman. Allison Mack, who was Clark's best friend in the show, she was arrested earlier this month for sex trafficking. She even created a program called The Source. Guess what it specialized in? It was to recruit actors and actresses into her sex trafficking organization. And she was under a company called Nexium that had already been deemed a sex cult. And it was reported that multiple members of the political elite and the Hollywood elite and the corporate elite had all been paying into this organization. Now, Nexium at this point is being held accountable, and that's how they ended up catching up with Allison Mack. But I want you all to understand something. You know, the founders of Seagram's donated $150 million to Nexium, this sex cult, people. Do you not think, and mind you, amongst political, corporate, and Hollywood elites, this was already known as a cult, was already being investigated as a cult, and these people decided, let's donate $150 million to them. Did you know that we have between 9,000 and 10,000 children being sold in the United States each year? And understand something, if these numbers are being reported, that is an underestimation because nobody wants to look that bad at their job. But even with the most conservative of numbers, by the way, the average age of these children are 15 years old. But even with the average, even with conservative estimates, with the math, because these children are being sold for sex about 5.4 times a day, that would mean that 2.5 million adults purchase children every year. That's in the United States. That's not including the children who are sold from the United States overseas. That's not including the children who never get found. That's not including the adults who never get caught. There are children who slip through the cracks of immigration, slip through the cracks of child protective services. Kids who get abducted from countries. And when we tried to cover this, saying that elites were potentially involved, given all the really, really close connections, we were called conspiracy theorists. And it reminds me, people, of that one time. Remember that one time all these super important old guys who were considered religious elite got caught doing some really crazy stuff with some little boys in the Catholic Church? Remember when those Catholic priests were just weak? They would never do anything like that. How could you ever think such a thing? Remember how people were ridiculed for calling that out? Remember how those little boys were chastised? They were saying, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just lying. Because the idea that people in power would be such deviants is just absolutely unfathomable to us. It's extremely uncomfortable because that means the people who run our country are psychopaths and sickos. And I hate to break it to you, they are. The leaders of our countries are psychopaths and sickos. They are power hungry. And that amount of power, especially when you feel like you can't be touched or held accountable, drives you to do things like this. Pedophilia is not new nor uncommon amongst elites. This is historic, going back to dates listed in the Bible, in other religious texts, in other countries. This is not new. And we're trying to pretend like it is. But the fact of the matter is, we're trying to pretend like this is new. Or, no, we're not. We are not trying to pretend like this is new. The elites are trying to pretend like the concept of pedophilia amongst elites is just, it's not possible, because a lot of them, to some degree, even if it isn't child pedophilia, like a lot of them to a degree are engaged in sex trafficking or pedophilia or selling or buying. They're engaged in it, or they have been around it, or they know somebody who is engaged in it in some way, form, or fashion. It's just like with the Harvey Weinstein situation. When he's arrested finally. But think about this, people. Lisa Bloom knew about what he was doing, never reported it. 17-year-old girl that he was trying to get put into, make famous, if you will. People knew and know about the idea of the casting couch and how child actresses and actors were forced to perform sexual acts in order to get into the door of Hollywood. And yet, nobody really said any names. Or except for, believe it or not, a lot of people on the hip hop side of the industry did actually say a lot of stuff about Harvey Weinstein, including Cameron and Dame Dash, Stacey Dash's older cousin. That's how she got into the industry. He actually slapped Harvey Weinstein because that's what he was known for. And every time he tried to call him out on it, he got a lot of pushback. But the reason you don't speak up about that type of behavior when it's right in front of you is because either you're personally involved in it or one of your friends is, and you sat idly by and watched it take place. So, if the entire news industry is doing the same thing, right? Sitting idly by when they know this is taking place, it's likely because, ding, 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 they're either involved in it, they know somebody who is, or they're being paid off to look the other way. Or it could affect their money streams. It's a fact. So, that's going to be it for this evening. But, hey, make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard on justinform.com. I'm going to go ahead and boom. So now y'all have it right there. justinform.com. Make sure that you go create your account today. We will add anybody who registered tonight. And follow my exclusive live stream. So make sure you do that, so we can go ahead and get it popping on Just Inform. It is the evolution of social media, and we are happy for those of you who are already a part of it, and we welcome those of you who will be joining tonight. It's time to get off of Facebook because they are not helping. That's JUSTNFORM, justinform.com. And thank you all so much for tuning in this evening. I will see you tomorrow 8 p.m. on Just Inform. Always remember, ladies and gentlemen, find your balance. Peace.